Thanks to the organizations like World Economic Forum, United Nations, and various governments in different parts of the world, we all are talking about sustainability. There are regulations, policies that different governments are coming in with. There are various Fortune 5,000 organizations that feel responsible to provide a better sustainable future to the next generations. There are startups that are working on really hard problems to make sure that we are not only solving problem statements of today, but also of 10 years from now. And then obviously there are investors, there is VC community, which is supporting these startups working on the hard problems for this planet. And it's not only one industry which is taking care of sustainability piece, but it's all the industries that are working in collaboration to make sure that we have a more sustainable planet. And it's not nice to have anymore, it's must have. And that's the reason that we have uHoo with us on this panel today. This is Pankaj Gupta from EthAum Venture Partners. We are a deep tech accelerator and fund based out of Singapore with approximately 90 startups in our portfolio. These are AR, ML, blockchain, IoT, robotics, AR, VR kind of startups from different parts of the world, stages, sectors. And uHoo is one of the portfolio startups that we onboarded in January 2023, which focuses on monitoring indoor air quality and providing you right insights. Today's panel is focused on sustainability with a bit more emphasis on real estate, but we will also be talking about sustainability in the utilities space. We have a very fantastic and diverse panel today to talk about the innovations, disruptions, policy changes that may be happening in this particular space. So without further delay, I would request Dustin, CEO of uHoo, to do a very quick intro of uHoo. And then I would request our panelists to do a brief introduction of themselves before we dive into the panel. Dustin?
All right. Thank you, Pankaj. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Dustin, and I'm one of the co-founders of uHoo. And uHoo is an environmental data platform for the built environment to improve health, to decarbonize, and to enhance ESG. We do this using our patented sensors and our proprietary algorithms and dashboards and software.
Thanks a lot, Dustin, for the quick intro. Katerina, may I request you to do an intro, please?
Thank you. So my name is Katerina, and I am Chief Sustainability Officer at ČEZ Group, which is the largest utility company in the Czech Republic, but we also operate in other European countries. So I am the representative of the utilities sector and energy savings and all the wonderful projects that hopefully sustainable energy will bring in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Katerina. Really appreciate your time today. George?
Hi. Yeah, so my name is George. I'm group head of ESG at a pan-European real estate investment and asset management organization. We manage about 14 billion in real estate. We're ambitious regarding ESG, evidently, and yeah, we're looking forward to some bright new ideas, so say from the other side of the Pacific, hopefully.
Thanks a lot, George. Appreciate your presence today. Sujay?
Yeah, hi, Pankaj. Thank you once again for having me. I'm an ESG manager with the new ESG advisory offshoot of Palmyra Capital Partners. It goes by the name Resk GmbH, and Palmyra Capital is basically a German real estate asset management firm. They manage over 2 million assets here, and we are also now expanding with ESG advisory services. Otherwise, I would consider myself an ESG due diligence expert with over 6 years of cross-sectoral experience. I've transitioned from software engineering to ESG because I believed engineers must be at the forefront of climate action. So I'd rather consider myself as an ESG soldier than an ESG leader.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Sujay. Appreciate your time. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Ang. I work for IRES. I head up the Sustainability and Investor Relations function. IRES is a real estate investment trust listed on Euronext in Dublin, Ireland. And we are the largest landlord in Ireland with about 4,000 homes that we invest and manage. Thanks for having me here today.
Fantastic. Appreciate your time, Michelle. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that the panel is extremely diverse with a lot of interesting insights that they are going to share today. So now I would request Dustin to take us through the panel by asking some interesting questions that he got for our panelists today. Dustin?
Yep. Yeah, thank you everybody for your introductions. So let's start with a broader type of question that I would like to ask everybody. And this would be, as leaders in your own fields, what are your biggest frustrations today with the current ecosystem and with the policies that are currently in place? So I'll just do it clockwise based on the photos on my screen. So we'll start with Sujay.
Thank you, Dustin. So as I mentioned, I do have expertise in due diligence, and a lot of what I do is focused on reporting and policy. So what I've noticed is that EU and German legislation is relatively less granular for commercial real estate and versus residential real estate at the moment, due to which it leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And there's never really clarity on how one could understand a specific legislation. And having said that, a lot of the assets commercial real estate asset managers have under their control are basically long hold. So the incentive to implement ESG measures in the short run is rather difficult due to the question of profits that come along. And I would summarize it at that, and on to the next person.
All right. Michelle, your thoughts about it?
Yeah, actually echoing what Sujay just mentioned there, regulation. I think the biggest challenge is regulation in what I can see, because the standardization and which whether we follow the EU framework or the Irish framework, there's so many frameworks out there. We do have this. Is slowly getting clarity around some areas, and also new legislation being put in place like mandatory reporting, which will give a little bit more transparency and also guidance as to how we report. But it starts with having clarity on the policy first, and then secondly is how do we report, what do we measure. I think oftentimes we have to figure out, okay, so the policy requires us to report on certain things, but doesn't really give us guidance on the methodology. It's all pretty much open to interpretation sometimes. So getting the guidance on that is welcome.
All right, sounds good. Katerina?
Yeah, I agree with what has been said. I think that it's good that legislation is standardizing or bringing, level playing field for everyone. And that's definitely a positive thing. But the cause for frustration lies in the fact that EU legislation is actually developing as we speak. EU taxonomy is a living document. We're getting ready for European standards, which have not been approved in the final version. Then we'll see how that's implemented into national legislation and potential for having in the EU 27 different versions of reporting legislation. It is not a happy thought. And considering that we'll have to implement pretty fast in large cap companies faster than SMEs, there is very little time to prepare. And for the large companies, if Sajid talked about due diligence, if we look at the upcoming legislation over the whole value chain, supply chain, that's tens of thousands of suppliers that will need to engage in many tiers, not just the first tier. And that's going to be a massive exercise. And sometimes it's overwhelming. So understanding the rules and having that granularity, that's absolutely necessary. If you ask different consultants, they'll give you different answers, and everybody is just basing it on a piece of paper because we don't have enough experience yet. And there are differences between different standards. So yeah, it's a big battle.
All right. Yeah, I'll get back to the differences in standards later. Let's listen to George first on what his frustrations are.
I would reframe it a bit. Yes, everybody is frustrated because European legislation is complex. But to be honest, there's a lot we know, right? So we can already manage what we know, and we know that we need to get more energy efficient. We know that we need to change the way we think about buildings. Not only as consumers of energy, we need to rethink buildings as prosumers, as batteries, as whatever. And so I think if you focus on decarbonizing, improving energy efficiency using interesting, let's say, technology, you're not on the wrong way. That's what we know, right? So I think regulation is a driver and partially a frustration, but the frustration starts when we try to implement what we know what we need to do. And then there is a dramatic lack of reliable data. It's not that there is no data, but the data is not, at least in Germany and in parts of Europe, we are a pan-European company, it is not fully reliable.
All right. Great. Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. And when it comes to standards, there are quite a number of standards out there in the market that I'd say can be quite confusing to different companies, because when you try to compare them, they would be measuring different things. So how do you choose which standard you'd like to follow? Going back to Katerina's point earlier about standards.
So in our reporting is actually driven by many factors. Legislation we've talked about, standards is the second leg, but we also monitor our competition because we're subject to ESG ratings, and ESG ratings means sometimes not just methodologies vary, but it's not just about ticking the right box and getting a raw objective score. Sometimes you're compared with your competitors. So we monitor competition so that we don't lag behind. And standards are one of those legs on which we build reporting. And absolutely the basic ones are GRI, because if we want to have audited data, ISO certifications that our auditors use are based on GRI standards. But because we're preparing for new legislation and we're preparing for standardization, we also use SASBs because we expect they'll be translated into ISSB standards. And although we operate in European region, I think that globally ISSB will be the standard to talk about in the future. We also look at World Economic Forum metrics. We report very granularly SDGs, Sustainability Development Goals, and not just the basic 17 ones, but sub-goals as well. And we also use TCFD framework. So it's a lot of standards, but that covers a lot of areas, and it allows us to prepare for that standardization that both European standards and ISSB standards will bring.
All right. Thank you for that, Katerina. Sujai, what are your thoughts about it since you do due diligence? So when you do due diligence with various companies, do you actually also count and look at the number of standards that they adhere to?
So when I say due diligence, we refer primarily to regulatory requirements and the most relevant certification standards that are out there. And right now, a lot of investors are quite determined to ensure that their assets are certified or at least valuable from an ESG perspective when it goes to the transaction market. So due diligence is seen as a necessary measure to strengthen the process, or let's just say boost their sales strategy. So due diligence from that perspective has been quite interesting. Otherwise, I would add something to it, and this is cut from the same piece of cloth as my colleague Georg regarding the implementation. So that's where I would say that implementation also is associated with strong operational costs. And that is a point I'd like to also mention regarding how we can probably transform certain things. There is a lot of legislation and regulation, there's a lot of standards, but we have to understand that real estate in a large part of Central Europe is actually decentralized. There are a lot of stakeholders, and these stakeholder equations are complicated. So there's a lot of operational costs involved when it comes to also conducting effective due diligence. And that's why I would say strengthening this cooperation is quite key to make sure we can expedite the process of ESG implementation.
All right. Yeah, thanks for that, Sujai. And panelists, please feel free to agree or disagree with your fellow panelists, so we can also have some form of debate here, which can be a bit exciting too.
I think just to add to it, from our perspective, how we select frameworks or reporting framework is driven by our stakeholder. So there are various stakeholders, not just the shareholders or investor, for example. So we look across funders, regulatory, and it's not picking the frameworks for the sake of having that badge or being aligned to certain frameworks. So considering that, because resources is limited, is time consuming to report to all the various frameworks. But one point that George mentioned earlier, which is very key to this, is the data accuracy. So there are some organizational rating agencies where they scrape public data and they report on ESG data based on what they can find in the public domain. And in some instances, the information is not accurately put in place or collected. So in some instances, we have very limited options, but to engage with certain agency to get information corrected, granted that it is an agency where it's important to our stakeholder that they have reference to.
Dustin, I think with this reporting, I think Sujay is pointing to the main thing. If you look from a capital markets point of view, right? So we are adding another layer of cost to an asset class called real estate, and the question is, who is going to pay for it? And now what is the real issue? The real issue is not the glitzy things that are being built right now, because they are LEED Gold, Platinum, DGNB, BREEAM, whatever, you name it. They're great because the new standards are really good standards. But 95% of the problem is already built. It stands right in front of our eyes. And these are buildings, office buildings, which are sometimes held by institutional investors, pension funds. Now, the issue is we have to, as an asset manager, we have to go to these institutionals and we have to say, hey, we need new OPEX, we need new CAPEX to finance energy efficiency measures. We need new money or a different way to invest, yeah, to keep these buildings fungible so we can resell them when the holding time is over and stuff like that. And the real issue is they're great solutions, but and I have talked in the past 24 months to about, and I'm not exaggerating, 120 prop techs. And none of that prop techs could give me a business case. They were all like, hey, you know, regulation is coming. Here's my price. I've got a great solution for you. They're never like, hey, I'm going to help you earn more money, or I'm going to help you communicate that to your investors because there's a business case in that, etc. So the real issue is, I think we have smart and interesting solutions. We have a very bad database, really the base of the data, real consumption data of buildings. That's a real issue and problem. We have a ton of reporting standards. If you add all the reporting standards that were mentioned by my pre-panelists, That's probably easily, I didn't analyze, easily more than 300 different data points per asset. Yeah. Who's going to pay for that? I mean, you know, you really need time for 300 data points. So the whole ecosystem is trying to find itself, and regulation is a driver, but nobody wants to pay for it. And that's a recipe for big, big problems, right? It's a recipe for greenwashing. It's a recipe for people knocking at your door or at the door of due diligence people telling them, no, I won't pay 10K for that DD. I'll pay 5. And then you sit there and you think, can we still do a good ESG DD without seeing that thing? You know, all that's the thing. There's a lot of pressure on the system. We are in prehistoric times in terms of digitization of our assets. Prehistoric, probably, you know, when you saw Michael Douglas in this movie Wall Street with this big phone, he had more interconnectivity and data than we have, you know, with our issues, with our assets. And that's really, that's where we need, you know, we need smart solutions, definitely.
Yeah, these are very interesting points that you brought up, especially on the part wherein there might be a lot of greenwashing because the costs are high. So if you look at, let's say you reflect on your own organizations, how do you balance within your organization your sustainability objectives and also your business objectives? Because if you try to go fully sustainable, it might incur a lot of costs. It might not be good for the bottom line. So how do you balance that? And what steps do you take to ensure that your sustainability initiatives are economically viable? Yeah, open to all the panelists on who'd like to answer first.
I'm happy to test the waters.
Sure, please.
Or if not, whoever wants to go first. Okay, I test the waters. So in the end, it'll be, let's say, it'll depend on the size of your assets. If you have a 100 million office asset, it's easier because probably, you know, because the opportunity cost is much lower. So it'll mean you probably need to throw out smaller assets. That would be a first thing I would do in any kind of portfolio. Concentrate on big assets. I also tell asset management as a default, put in a 5% digitization, decarbonization, OPEX and CAPEX for every year without specifying. Just put that in so you don't have to talk to these, you know, you don't need this decision anymore. You can do it as your daily business. So do every little step helps, you know, to bring down the threshold. And then you have the money and then you can pay for good solutions. Yeah, and all of these little steps are important, but really one of the most important steps is to budget it and not to do a one-time thing, because in the end, it's not so, I mean, even putting on all the meters, whatever, let's say 30, 50, 100 meters of a big office building. Yes, it's a one-time thing, but if you roll it over and you see it's about 7 years and you get the data, so I think there's a lot of little steps you can do, right, to make it viable. But there's always a trade-off, and what you cannot do, or what is the thorny question, comes afterwards. After you analyze the building, if you would say this becomes a stranded asset, right, it's not fungible anymore after the holding period, and we need big CapEx. That is what really changes your equation. I think the OPEX and stuff that you may be even been able to pass on to tenants, that can be done. And you know, there are a lot of little interesting plays you can do to optimize that, but this is really complex. It's an art.
Yeah, thank you for that, George. Sujay, you were about to
Sure.
earlier as well.
So what I wanted to jump in earlier was organizations currently, not just Palmyra, overall, if you look at how real estate is developing in Germany and Central Europe for sure, is that they are taking leadership steps to become pioneers in respective industries, be it offices or, in my case, distribution warehouse market. And the first step of the leadership is to acknowledge that there is a requirement to address this topic more seriously. And that's why you have someone like me in this panel as well, as an ESG manager, trying to somehow drive the topic and oversee the implementation of these measures. So real estate is probably an asset class at a very large overview or macro level. But then at the end of the day, it's like a family of different stakeholders. You have asset managers, facility managers, property managers, technical managers, and then now you also have ESG managers. So it's about how do you coordinate with these stakeholders to ensure you can drive success, knowing that all of these stakeholders are not incentivized to actually drive ESG or consider ESG in their budgeting. So it's about trying to find a small gap and ensure that somehow the interests of all stakeholder groups is considered.
All right. Thank you for that, Sujay. Yes, Katerina, you unmuted yourself.
Yes, so my perspective is a little bit different because I'm not in real estate, but we provide services, energy saving services to our customers, and there is variety of those, starting from households to municipalities, infrastructure like hospitals, to large industrial complexes. And the question of costs of these things that are right to do is a very legitimate one, because you cannot be sustainable if you do not make profit. What we need to ensure is that profit is generated ethically. I think that's a given. That's the whole point of ESG. It's not about how much, but also how you get to that profit. And when we look at our customers and providing these energy saving solutions, then we have to come up with creative products, because not everybody has money to buy these services. So what we also provide is complex solutions when actually reducing costs, saving energy. And by energy, I just don't mean electricity or lights or heating, cooling, but also water consumptions. So these are complex solutions, and customers basically pay for them from their savings, which allows them to get these services without having saved for it first, or without getting loans or at high interests. Basically, they pay from the saved costs. If the buildings, and it's been said on the panel that the old buildings are the problem. So if you have an inefficient building and you commit to this contract, then you might have 10, 15 years to pay for it from the savings that you make, and those savings can be substantial. We've had, for example, National Theatre in Prague, which is a nightmare in itself because it's a protected building, it's a cultural heritage. So you cannot just come in and bring smart solutions without discussing it with your stakeholders. And basically, their real savings on energy in 10 years was over 90 million Czech crowns, which amounts to 4.35 million US dollars. But it takes years, and it's paid. We look to the future, because that's what sustainability is about. You cannot change it at the snap of your fingers. It requires innovative and forward-looking solutions, and this is true for hospitals or large buildings that we worked on. And not only does it save costs to customers, it also saves amount of CO2 that goes into the air.
All right. Thank you, Katerina. Michelle, any comments on the question?
I don't disagree with my fellow panelists. I think collectively, whether you're from real estate or different other industries, collectively, we're all doing our parts to, as Pankaj mentioned earlier, a sustainable planet comes limited resources, and we're all contributing towards it. How we prioritize is, business case needs to stack up, as well as having a ESG strategy that is aligned to the business strategy. So we look at it from strategy of alignment as well, from what can we achieve in the limited resource, whether it's time, whether it's money, and prioritizing it. So short, medium, long term, where we're going to place our effort and so on, what's urgent, what's priority. So this will inform our planning, this will inform the strategy for our buildings as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, earlier the panelists also mentioned about older buildings being the problem and getting rid of older assets as part of the solution when it comes to your own sustainability strategy. So when you look at, let's say, the built environment or your own buildings, how do you decide on whether you'd want to destroy and rebuild it, or would you want to renovate it? Because you could repurpose the same building where the structure is already there, the carbon has already been used. So how do you decide on whether you'd want to destroy and rebuild the building or repurpose it for something else through renovation?
I don't want to be first, but I can tell, yeah. So first of all, maybe just the situation in Germany, and it's pretty much probably all over Europe. If you destroy a building and rebuild it, even if it's an energy positive building afterwards, you're out of the 1.5 degree decarbonization pathway. It's not possible for that building to to compensate the emissions that are caused by doing the building and rebuilding it, no matter how good the new building is. So let's say refurbishing, revitalizing buildings will be super important. Absolutely, yeah. Building new buildings in Germany, as I said, it's not possible inside the 1.5 degree corridor. Maybe it's possible in the 2.0 corridor, but so it's a hard question. In general, I would say just don't destroy these buildings. In practice, we are we have to act in the interest of our investors, right? So there are probably buildings where we say you have to invest so much to get this building back into any kind of good decarbonization pathway. We don't want that. Yeah, let's just, if we can, let's just sell it and let's have somebody else who's better prepared to deal with that, right? So probably what you will see in the market is players who are focused, investors who are focused on manage to green or manage the former or the new manage to core, right? Investors that will already be waiting here in Europe until evaluations go down a bit, because we haven't seen enough re-evaluation. That's my personal point. And once this happens, you will see these funds getting into these buildings at good discounts. And this discount will provide them with some leeway to invest and to get these buildings back up to say standard, right? That would be the good outcome. But yes, so you will have a look, and probably the issue is it's very difficult just to tell from a database. You need to talk to technical management. You have our ESG soldier here on the panel. You'll talk to these people that did a good DD. What's their feeling, because they've seen the building. They probably have talked to the PM, to the property manager. You yourself will do that. You have your technical advisors, and then you take a decision. Yeah. So, but it will be specific building by building, really going through the portfolios. That's what we need to do as good asset managers. We go from building to building.
All right, sounds good. Michelle, Sajay, and Katerina, any comments on that?
Thankfully, we haven't had to. Our portfolio is quite young, so the building on average we have a portfolio of 13 years old, so they're not tired building. Majority or more, all of them are modern building, with very strict building reg here in Ireland. So we haven't had to retrofit or knock down or repurpose. So, but in my view, if we're talking about carbon emission contribution, if we're knocking down building, I think as a starting point, you are building up on the embodied carbon already. So if we're purely just talking about carbon emission reduction, perhaps the knocking down building would not be my first option. We'll try and retain structure, try and do as much as possible within the existing building, unless, of course, George touched on the technicality, whether it's workable, is it going to do more harm than is worth for keeping or retaining. So the technical assessment, looking at what is priority in terms of repurposing the building and what's important as a consideration as a strategy for the asset.
I'd like to go here. So when you talk about demolishing a building, we need to also consider that we have upcoming legislation such as the Supply Chain Due Diligence Act in Germany. So if you're building something new, you have to also adhere to the policy requirement of conducting even more due diligence and trying to find out from where the materials are coming in and what sort of materials are going into the process. So there's a lot more stress for the investor / asset manager in terms of considering different factors. And secondly, with respect to the portfolios I've seen, we have the building stock is actually quite old. Some are even pre-World War era. So they sell well because they are distribution houses and they're always in demand. There's always somebody who wants to rent the building and they rent it for long term. So where we could benefit is by retrofitting PVs on rooftops of these buildings. So there, however, we encounter different challenges, such as getting the permission or actually doing that and navigating through taxation laws to ensure that it is profitable from a business model perspective. So I would say that by trying to bring down things, it's going to create more chaos than actually mitigate anything.
Interesting. Yeah. Earlier, Katerina mentioned about being creative in incentivizing the customers. So generally, what are some of the most innovative sustainability initiatives that you've done or have implemented? And what impact have had that on your organization and your customers?
Yeah, I already mentioned these energy performance contracts. So what we're actually offering is a solution that makes sense, because in economic terms, we're saying we're going to lower your operational costs. And one of the toughest things there is to make sure that the energy transition that we're seeing happening is just transition. That it's not only rich corporations or it's not only the top classes that can afford these sustainable solutions. So figuring out how we can offer these products, decrease energy efficiency, decrease energy expenditure, increase efficiency, provide savings on heating costs, cooling costs, and provide that not just to individual companies or household, but also to communities. That's what we're looking at. And we know that this is given, and either we are going to be creative and innovative and we're going to survive and we're going to adapt and we're going to transform, or we'll become obsolete. So this is what we've been doing with our customers. We do have educational activities as well. We have portal that it's called CHES Academy, that actually teaches our stakeholders what they can do, provides more information, clear information, and it's been really successful. It's something that's not typical that you would expect companies to do in terms of communicating with because it seems counterintuitive. If we sell energy, don't we want our customers to buy more, rather than saying, okay, let's look at ways where you can buy less. So it seems counterintuitive in this sense, but that's what is required of us, because it's good for everyone, and it does bring solutions that work. We work with municipalities where we provide them with smart lightings. They can buy it for only £1. There's like 25 crowns per dollar, so you get it for a few cents. You pay off, there is a contract, you pay off from the savings, and then after a certain time you become the owner of that asset. We do that with photovoltaics on let's say hospitals or a Prague Congress Center. Again, you invest very little, and basically you pay it from the savings, and after a certain time, 10 years, 15 years, it becomes your asset and you can continue operating it. And if you think about the lifetime of photovoltaics, there is a lot of years left in that asset. And the energy crisis also showed us that what might have been more expensive a couple of years ago now makes more sense. With high energy prices, now investing into these solutions makes more sense. And we've seen incredible increase in demand for these solutions. Chess Distribution was asked to connect over 70,000 points last year, which is 4 times increase from the previous year. So people are starting to think, and companies are starting to think about how can they be more frugal. Nobody wants everyone to go back to the dark ages, but we cannot afford to be wasteful, and looking for ways to save. I think that's the right way forward.
All right. Thank you, Katerina.
I think it's good time to take some audience input as well. I'm not sure if anybody wants to add anything to the conversation so far.
Yeah, we had one comment from Chun Lee. Yeah, she mentioned indoor air quality is very important sustainability issue. What is normal practice for real estate industry to improve air quality?
Probably Michelle, yeah, please.
Yeah, I can go first. I think for residential sector, for us is a little bit more straightforward. We have the benefit of building in windows. So every homes that we own, that's a given. And what you can do beyond that is perhaps monitoring indoor air quality. We don't really have like centralized plant like offices in other industries, so we're limited in how we manage that. But I guess fresh air is as fast as you can go in terms of providing that air quality for our residents.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, I think also, let's say from a German/European perspective, maybe I can only, what was just said, I can only emphasize that because in the end, let's say air quality is more or less quite okay. Yeah. So even with office buildings, you try and I'm sitting in a tower. Normally it's great to be able to just open windows a bit, right? Then of course you have air conditioning systems and let's say complex cooling heating systems, which are also part of the intelligent management of the building. We were approached, or we have been approached by experts for air quality systems. And I have to admit, we didn't start a pilot so far. If we would start it, we are also involved in micro living and student housing. Probably we would start it there or with hotels, yeah, and have a look how that influences the building. But I think it's less, probably a bit less of an issue from a European perspective, because with all the legislation we have, air quality on the outside gets really good, right? And it's still a zone also where now, besides parts of Spain, we are like in the normal zone, so to say. You know, it's still okay-ish.
Chun-Li, yeah, I think you wanna, yeah, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So actually, this is a common understanding that Asia has worse air quality, and but it is actually in Europe and also including UK, where I am, the air quality is not as good as we commonly think it is. For example, in UK, 99% of population living in a region which has at least one air quality measures, for example, PM 2.5, NOx, and PM 10, so for example, will exceed the annual safety level of WHO. And I think actually Europe is a similar situation as well. But the people, because the problem is not as severe as in Asia, people are not aware of it. Additionally, you know, indoor air, outside air is even better than Europe, but inside indoor air has many sources of air pollutants. So including actually COVID or bacteria and viruses is another type of air quality issues. And there are so many research has been proven, you know, is improve air quality can improve people's learning ability and improve dementias, you know, reduce the risk of getting dementias and reduce the risk of diabetes and you know, many health issues, but people are not aware of it. And we are, you know, there's a very good report from a chief medical officer of UK and listed very scientific founded statistic to back this up. I'm happy to share this link to you. In here, you can read what is actually air pollutants to do to us.
Thank you, Chun-Li Kao. Appreciate it.
I'd like to add something here.
Please.
So
yeah.
Thanks, Chun-Li, for that comment about air quality. I totally agree that it is definitely a concern that is growing. So let's just look at this from a business perspective. Ultimately, ESG is seen as a risk factor for the assets. And the risk is measured based on this stranding year that we see along the CREM analysis. That is the most, that is the hot topic in real estate about what's the stranding year for a specific asset. And the stranding year ultimately refers to the emissions from an asset. So currently, everyone's focus is on reducing the emissions or mitigating the risk that arises from this high emission. With respect to air quality, the perceived risk is still low. Even though it may be an issue, the risk factor is not as high as it should be. So if there is a suitable problem statement out there, then I'm sure air quality can be taken equally seriously.
I would just like to add one point when we discuss all these issues, whether it's decarbonization, air quality, or whatever. There's a social component to this too. Yeah, we have, I think, all over Europe, at least the way I see it, a major housing crisis. And people, at least here in Germany, it's very difficult to find affordable housing for young people, for people that don't have a lot they can pay. So it's not only like, you know, that we are bad capitalists that like to ignore stuff to fill our pockets. It's also that already in Germany, we only build like half of what we should build. And that's not even including 1 million refugees from Ukraine, because it's just expensive. We cannot make money anymore building these buildings. And to say the capacity of tenants to pay these high rents is also limited. So with that, Sujay, I think I'm on your side. The issue is a bit, of course, we would like to do the whole menu, right? And that would all be great. But in the end, it's real people. And it's like, you know, the first thing, if I talk to architects, if a young couple comes and say, I want to build a building, we want this house and it should be completely sustainable. Yes, that's how you start. Then you look at the cost, you know, and in the end, you may end up in a completely different building. So let's not forget that with all that we wish for and hope for, it has a cost. And if we cannot compensate the cost, there will be issues. And there are already issues. And a lot of people that argue regulation is too high and we're not able anymore to provide socially affordable housing.
Yeah, sorry, Sujay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Georg mentioned, and also a question earlier regarding innovative solutions. So I believe that if there has to be further innovation in real estate, it needs to simplify certain tasks or reduce costs. Cost, when I say, is not just monetary, but also effort in terms of time invested. If there are solutions that can do that, then we can go a long way in actually revolutionizing the sector. For example, you have things such as LED installation. LED installation might sound simple. You know, you just get a couple of bulbs and you replace the existing lighting, but that's not how it happens. You need to know what percentage of the area needs to be fitted with new LEDs. And where do we get this information? It's again coming from people on site who are rather bored of supplying this data. So I would say that innovation must focus on simplifying existing processes. And second thing is, with respect to air quality, although it is an additional factor and seen as probably a nice to have, it would be nice if we have solutions that package environmental solutions with social benefits. So if we have currently E and ESG is seen as the strong business case or the focus for investors, but S and G are not so much. It's rather seen as a nice way to maybe come up with a policy, and then the policy can be part of your annual section report, and that's about it. So if you can have solutions that say, hey, this reduces energy and at the same time provides these benefits, then we can go a long way in actually implementing all pillars of the ESG.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, Sujay. When we talk with our clients, we often say that S is the lost middle child in ESG, because the focus is really on the E right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, Chile. Yep.
Yes, I used to work for BRAIN, Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method. So actually, we did some financial analysis about the impact of achieve BRAIN and to the cost of the buildings. Actually, if you basically the 5 levels, if it is achieve 4, generally speaking, you won't increase any cost to the building itself. It's just a way of designing the building to holistically considering, basically social impact and economic impact, as well as the environmental impact. So it's a way of thinking about sustainability from start when you design the building, running the building, and demolish the building for the whole life cycle.
I think this is the perfect time to move on to the next section. And I mean, this panel has been really fantastic so far. We have been able to get so much insight from our panelists, and obviously we could have go on with this for hours and hours, getting all this knowledge, collecting all this knowledge. But this is the time to move on to the next section where we roast the startup and why we do this kind of roasting with the startup founders, why we, we take them through this kind of process, because most of the times when founders present their solution to the customers or the investors, they either get a sugar-coated BS or a complete silence, and that doesn't help. We really want to make sure that we are able to get a brutal feedback. We are able to get some direct questions from the subject matter experts. We are able to learn from their feedback, improve, and grow. And I think this is the fantastic opportunity when we are sitting in front of experts of the field. So Dustin, shall we do a brief pitch of uHoo and get some really interesting questions and feedback from the experts?
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. So I'll be doing a 4 to 5 minute pitch, and after the pitch, you can just roast me, basically.
Go ahead, please.
All right. Let me share my screen. All right. There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Dustin, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of uHoo. We believe that clean air is a fundamental human right, but more than 90% of the world's population does not have access to clean air. Science has shown that breathing in poor air not only makes you sick, it also reduces your productivity and increases the CO2 emissions of the built environment. But how can you manage something that you cannot measure? And how can you measure that you cannot see? This is why we created uHoo. uHoo is an environmental data platform for the built environment to improve health, to decarbonize, and to enhance ESG. In essence, uHoo lets you measure what you cannot see, so you know exactly how to manage it. We can view real-time historical data of all your rooms, offices, and buildings and manage them from one dashboard. You'll get alerts and tips on what you can do and create various smart automations to ensure your health and safety 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are the most comprehensive solution measuring 13 parameters. Other products measure less than half of what we do. Our customers love us because we focus on performance and reliability. And we designed our platform, our solution, as a platform that allows you to benchmark your portfolio of properties to enhance your sustainability and ESG strategy. uHoo's growing customer base, accessed via our global distribution network, is currently at 25,000 homes and growing. We also currently serve hundreds of private and public enterprises across more than 20 countries. We provide our clients with clear value, allowing us to have millions of dollars in the pipeline for 2023 alone, with just a few of our existing clients and partners. We also help our clients earn the necessary credits to achieve sustainability certifications such as LEED and WELL, and to enhance their overall ESG performance. We have a simple business model where we sell our patented devices together with a SaaS fee to access the uHoo dashboard. Our clients are homeowners, asset owners, tenants, and corporate real estate. We also sell our solution to value-added resellers, who in turn sell our solution to the same types of customers. One of the beauties of our model is we lock in customers on multi-year SaaS contracts, and we have a 95% renewal rate among our enterprise clients. We are addressing a growing $401 billion market that is driven by health, sustainability, and ESG. We have been able to achieve what we have today because of our highly seasoned team who are passionate about health and sustainability, with backgrounds in consulting, engineering, sales, and marketing. Clean air is a fundamental human right. I'd like to invite you to come join us in our mission to make clean, breathable air accessible to all. Thank you.
Okay, let's take questions.
All right. Happy to take any questions.
How do you collect this data, Dustin?
Yep. We developed our own devices. So we have a residential device that is roughly the size of a tumbler, cylindrical in shape, and it measures 9 parameters minute by minute, and you get all the data on the app. For our enterprise clients, we also developed a device called the uHoo Aura, which is squarish in shape. It's the size of a Wi-Fi router that you can just screw onto a wall or double tape to a wall. It's powered by a USB, and it measures 13 parameters with the option to expand up to 15 parameters. It also measures minute by minute, and you get all the data on the business dashboard or app. The parameters that we measure on our enterprise solution are temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide, VOCs, air pressure, carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, 4 sizes of particulate matter, which are PM1, PM2.5, PM4, and PM10, noise, and light. So these are the 13 base parameters, and it's expandable to add 1 more parameter or 2 more parameters depending on the industry that you're in. So for example, in the UK, most of our clients would want to add a nitrogen dioxide and ozone sensor. So from that 13, they can buy an additional module, then they just insert it into the device. And let's say in another industry, if it's on the industrial side, they can buy a sulfur dioxide module or a hydrogen sulfide module, depending on what they need. Yep.
I have a question. So thanks for the presentation. Really like the product. I think earlier we heard from the floor about air quality and what is within our control and beyond our control. So you could provide a way to monitor to see the quality and other key data points. And earlier you mentioned about informing them or telling them what to do. So much as having something monitoring the progress, but informing. I'm thinking from if I'm a homeowner and I own this little apartment here that I'm in, and I have this monitoring device. But beyond that, what can I do is what I will be thinking of. So having device is one thing, but once I know the information or it's unhealthy for me, for example, what can I do then to improve? So to a certain extent, there are things that I can improve and things that I cannot improve. For example, if I open the window and the air quality is not good, I can't do much about it. So my question is, given that you have this data set, what are your thoughts on influencing or using this data point in locations or geolocation based to inform policymakers in addressing some of these air quality issue? Because it is something that we can't see. I just wonder whether there is any further thought beyond what this product can do as the initial data monitoring and what's next.
Yes, I absolutely agree with the point that you mentioned. We've had a project previously with the government of the Netherlands, wherein they deployed our solution across residences in one town. So it's approximately 120, 150 homes where our product was installed there, and the residents shared their data back to the government. And it allowed them to have a crowdsourced view of an entire town. And they were able to enact or design new policies to improve the health within that space. So for example, one of the things that they notice is that every morning at approximately 6 a.m. until 8 a.m., the NO2 levels across all the homes would rise to a very high level and then go back down after 8 a.m. And what they realized after a few months of observing that type of trend is that it's caused by the trucks running through the highway that was across the town. So that was a contributing factor. And from that, they were able to develop policy on how to address that peak in nitrogen dioxide levels. So that's one way that our solution also helps. Another project that we're working on right now is one entire city in California, where our solution is deployed across all the government buildings. And they want to they want to improve the health and well-being within their buildings and hopefully utilize that data to develop new policies as well within that town for the other commercial buildings. Yes, so the data is valuable also in terms of policy development. It's a question of whether the government is actually looking at it more, have a more forward-thinking mindset in using the data for another use case, which is policy development.
Thank you for
Did
that.
I answer your question?
Yeah, that's really helpful. As the product itself is, the use case is clear. I think it's a good product that there is a need for it. Monitoring, I can see it being used in commercial offices or the like. So yeah, as a product, I think it is important to be able to recognize the data, and to a certain extent what we can control as a landlord, as a owner, that if we're putting something in, we want to be able to do something about it. So it's not just, oh yeah, the output is showing us X, but it's what we do after we learn these data points, that we put in place a plan, just like the example that you gave. So thank you.
Thank you too for your question, Michelle.
I wanted to ask, when you talk about these devices, what is the area in which you can measure or collect the data? If you have a homeowner, do you need one for every room? If you have a large production hall, do you need it every 10 meters, or what's the reach?
Yep. We normally recommend our clients to put one device for every 500 to 800 square feet of open space. So that's our usual recommendation. For our residential clients, it depends, up to them if they want to put one for every room, or they put one in the main living room for maybe a month and then they move the device to a bedroom, or some of them would actually put one in every room. So it's also a function of the budget that they have in the home. And it's the same case for our business customers. Some of them would only put it across all the open spaces across the entire office, while others would put across the entire open space and also one in every meeting room. So it depends on their use case. Most of the time when our clients put it in every meeting room, it's because they want to be able to monitor how basically the health and safety within the meeting room when it is being used. And some of them would integrate our solution with their meeting room booking system to understand whether people use the room without booking the room, or whether somebody booked the room but not use it and prevent others from using the room. So it's also a way for them to manage the meeting rooms inside their offices. Yeah. And if, let's say, we look at it from a industrial perspective, let's say if it's a warehouse that's fully wide open, they can put one device for approximately 2,000 square feet. So it really depends on the use case and the type of space.
Thank you. Perhaps one more question. Is there, let's say that there are, some of the parameter is just way too high. Does it send alerts?
Yes, it does. It sends alerts. Yep. And if it's too high for our enterprise customers, they integrate it with the HVAC system of their building. So we can actually automate the heating, the ventilation, and the air conditioning of the building at the same time. Yeah. And from there, it actually helps them to become more energy efficient as well, because they can find new correlations from the data.
Hey, Dustin. Sorry, that was,
Yes,
yeah, correct. Yeah, thank you for the solution. That is quite interesting and nice to see that there's something different that's coming on the table onto the screen. So with respect to how I think maybe you'd benefit is perhaps you can work on the storyline. I felt at the start, you don't place that much emphasis on that. You start off with clean air is a fundamental human right. I agree with that, but I also feel it can be seen as a bit activist in nature. And Germany and Europe already have plethora or conveyor belt of legislation which talks about human rights. There are 30 human rights in Germany, which is recognized by the law. And you tell them again that clean air is a fundamental human right. It doesn't actually respond or sit well with the business strategy. So if I were in your place, maybe I'd focus on understanding how can I package this with the ESG strategy of the company, so that there is a benefit at the macro level and at the micro level. Because ultimately, your solution would get watered down or at least filtered through various levers. Maybe you package this to a consultant or a lead, but ultimately the person who signs it off is probably the chef or the CEO of the company. And they don't have more than 5 minutes usually to look at these things. So it's important that you directly speak to the business strategy if you'd like to get this out there.
Thank you very much for the feedback, Sujay. Appreciate it.
And this is the whole purpose of this roast session. Obviously, please ask questions, but also provide your brutal feedback without any hesitation, whatever you may feel like. So please be completely open with your feedback. Anybody else?
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I can elaborate also what Sujay said. It's so say if we talk about fundamental rights, that's so say United Nations, that's all good, and I love that. Yeah, I'm with climate issues for more than 20 years, and I know that once you find that out and you find out how important air quality is, whatever, that you get very passionate about it. But in the end, the people that will decide whether they use it or not, the solution, and whether we invest or not, they'll only ask me or Sujay or you. They ask for one bottom line, and that's their bottom line. Does it improve anything? Does it make anything easier? And then I think if you combine that, I don't know, just as working title, right? It's a combination. It's a highly integrated health and carbon tool or whatever. I would position it more like that and take out a bit the activism part. That's good for us, and I like that, and it's super for TED Talk. But in the end, for executives, it's really do we save money? Do we make investors more happy? Do we make tenants more happy? Is it a shortcut? Maybe, as Sujay said, and I think Katharina, you too. So can I save maybe a step with this? And I think that's what you need to play. Unfortunately, unfortunately, we talk about the triple bottom line, but in my experience, talking to executives and asking for money, it's mostly one bottom line, and that's financial.
Very good point.
What panelists say, to give specifically feedback on the pitch deck itself, catering for the various group of audience who's signing the check. We talk about homeowner in the same category as institutional investors. It didn't quite link as to what is it that you're pitching, who you're pitching to. So the ask from the pitch deck isn't as clear as to require the audience to sign a check now, or are you promoting just the product? I actually thought it was the latter, the promoting the product.
Okay, thank you for that too.
Yeah, actually, there's so many research out there to prove clean air can improve people's productivity. And if you use it like uHoo's monitoring device or other devices to clean the air, that means actually you can reduce the employees' sick leave by roughly 20%. That is in a standard office scenario. And also you can improve people's productivity by quite a large amount as well. Actually, this is not a new study, has been going on for a long time and also has been been proven by very good research, very good universities, for example, Harvard or UCL in UK, and all other big world famous university to show it. But just because people are not aware of it, they don't take action. That's the current industry situation. That's what we found. By the way, a company is founded in Oxford University, and our technology is from is basically invented by scientists from Oxford. Yeah.
Thank you, Chun-Li. And Chun-Li also mentioned in her comment that they are using uHoo solution at Healthy Air Technology Limited. So thanks a lot, Chun-Li, for mentioning that.
Thank you for that. I didn't know that you're a customer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, brilliant.
Any other comment from audience? Any feedback? Any questions?
I think to elaborate or to sum it up, Dustin, I think what you just heard, if your main USP, and I think that's something you need to decide depending on whom to talk to, because if you talk to us and you say productivity is going to improve in the offices, we say, well, great, but then talk to the tenants, right? So it could be an interesting way for you to push your product to talk to big tenants like whatever, KPMG, EY, these massive big firms that, by the way, also are very conscious about their carbon footprints and always looking for ways. So you could basically go indirectly and tell them, hey, push your asset managers to introduce that. So it's very important, because with us, really, you need to tell us that we save money or I think it's too far away for us to say it might improve or it will improve here studies, it will improve our tenants' life, because we would then say, yeah, but it's up to the tenants to ask for that. Yeah, for us, it's really the single bottom line, I think, for the tenants, and that might be an interesting strategy. And also talking maybe to architects and to gain some notoriety, so to say, in a positive way, some profile. And last but not least, because I seem to have seen Otto, is it correct that you're working with Otto Group in the German market? Or was
Yes.
that a kind of...
Otto is a reseller for the residential market. Yes.
Yeah, so this is a good business partner. So congrats. Yeah, so build on that in the German market. I mean, everybody knows Otto here. Like Otto is as well known in Germany as Mercedes-Benz or whatever. So they're all over the place. And they, as a family, they have a very, very strong sustainability commitment since a long time. Yeah, so they're a good partner, and think what you can with them. And again, I would so go via the tenants and make the tenants push their asset managers to do it. Because if the tenants knock our door and say we want that, we probably move. Yeah, and it gives us a reason to move, so to say.
Yes. I don't know if Dustin, because in Dustin's PPT, you say you can save energy, and actually we got proven evidence we can actually using monitoring devices as uHoo actually can save energy for buildings. And we basically have a system actually achieve that. You can achieve clean air. In the meantime, you can also save energy by large amount as well. This is a happy to talk to you afterwards, George, and we are connected in LinkedIn as well. So let me drop you something. Brilliant.
I think Chun-Li, Dustin and you need to have a discussion after this call. That's the first thing that we need to do.
I believe I'm connecting with Dustin as well. Quite a few people here I'm connected with. I'm surprised. Okay.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Any last comment? Any final comment?
Yeah, if I may, I agree with Michelle when she said that you basically address homeowners and corporations in one pitch. And my recommendation would be absolutely tailor each pitch to your audience, and the more specific, the better. Because
Okay.
at one point, you lost me there when you started presenting like a platform, and I get so many marketing emails, we have data platform, we have data platform, we have data platform. And it's really hard to decide, okay, I'm going to talk to you because you intrigued me with something. So for me, it was high level. And I was actually, my note that I had here was, I need to ask about those 13 parameters that you measure. And that was something very specific that was missing in the presentation. And George said that, CEOs, they're concerned with costs, true. But depending on who you talk with in the company, like if you talked to me as, chief sustainability officer who has reporting in mind, and you told me you're gonna get these data pieces, it solves my problem with getting data. It does not solve my problem with providing clean air, because that's not my job. So think about what this person's problem is. Even within the same company, you might have different pitches for different people, because I might go and talk to my CEO saying, I'm not gonna, save you some money, but I'm gonna find a faster solution for data collection that will be less administrative or less challenging, and so yeah, do that, because you want to differentiate yourself from other data platforms. How are you different? What you provide that others do not, and people need to see that very quickly.
Yep, thank you for that too, Katerina.
Just elaborating on what you said, Katerina, and that's an interesting point, because I always tell PropTechs, if they can do it, why don't you get into, if you have not, in an ecosystem like Grasp? Grasp is a real estate scoring model. And if, for example, if we can gain points in the Grasp rating because we introduce your solution, and there I'm with Katerina, then I also have something I can tell these people. Because we have institutional clients, Scandinavian funds, Dutch funds, and they really want to be at the forefront. Institutional investors that say, we want to have the best, the greenest real estate portfolio in the industry, but we only have 3 stars with the GRESB rating. How can we improve the GRESB rating? And if I then can say, look, there are different solutions, but for example, why, if, for example, the decarbonization path is already exhausted or very expensive, why don't we go down and on an issue like air quality, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah. But I think it all comes what Katerina said. They're different audiences, and they need their little hook to say that works. And I think even if you just are very audacious and you say, look, the cost, for an average house is X, office is Y. Only to give me those costs and a benefit analysis. And in a world of carbon prices of 20 euros, that's what just give me more specific stuff to work on. And then, everybody, I think, wants to push for a good solution.
Yep. All right. Thank you for that too, George.
Hi, everyone. My name is Donna Chan. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm part of Global ARIA, which is the Asian Real Estate Association of America. So I wanted to say thank you, Dustin, for taking the time. I know I met your lead sales manager, Excel, and she's amazing. We and I go back with exactly with all the panelists. Thank you for taking your time today to elaborate about real estate sustainability, because that's the future that we all need to look into. And being a partner alliance with you, Dustin, on uHoo, I thank you for a proud sponsor. I'm here today is to listen in on it as well too, because we work with investors, we work with residential real estate as well too. So broad spectrum is, what is your target market, right? I'm here because you're a partner. I want to help you as well too. And that's the reason why we're alliances with associations globally, right? Is to meet everyone here as well too. So, but at the end of the day, I think, what is your current market in regards? Are you doing more on the B2B side of it, like doing with the wholesale or are you is it selling it to the common consumers, right? Because we need to distinguish that to be able to help as well too. But thank you so much for everyone for your time. It's been a great hearing about, I just went to the Czech Republic and it's beautiful. So when you're talking about saving so much money, but it is a long run. It's not a next day, tomorrow options for us. But thanks so much for it. I'd like to listen more about it and understand the product, because if it's able to help, like what Michelle was saying, is it for our apartments? Is it for big warehouse commercial buildings? That's how we'd like to, I think, it to better, service your industry and help you to be a better, build as well too. So thank you. Once again, my name is Donna Chan with Aria Global, and thank you. I'd like to be able to meet you all personally as well too, to elaborate.
Yeah, thank you for that, Donna. Yeah, I'd be happy to elaborate more on a separate call as well on where our market focus is. Yeah.
Okay, I think this has been extremely fantastic. A lot of insights, a lot of knowledge that we gathered from the expert panelists today. Thanks a lot for Chun-Li for being an active audience member. Thanks to Dustin for moderating the panel so well and asking questions and taking the feedback with all the modesty and humbleness. So really, really appreciate everybody's time today. And I think this is just the beginning of this new relationship. We need to reconnect again in the next couple of weeks, see how we can collaborate each other, how we can help each other. And I think we got some fantastic feedback from our panelists, and Dustin, we need to work on that. We need to make sure that we have the right messaging, we have the right kind of partnership and ecosystem support when we expand more in European region. So again, thanks to our panelists for their feedback and insights, and we'll reconnect soon. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.